Cassie, you have to help me. Look at me. I'm a mess. The fluorescent lights in the hospital hallway flickered above as Jared's voice cracked through the sterile air. His disheveled appearance should have tugged at my heartstrings, but right now there was only one feeling: anger. Help you? Why should I help the man who broke his promises and our family? You said you'd be there for us, Jared. Guess we both know how that turned out. This is your mess to clean up. I crossed my arms, glaring at him as he lay in the hospital bed, a jumble of wires and machines attached to him. Jared's eyes widened in desperation. Cassie, please. I know I've messed up. You think? I cut him off sharply. Every word he spoke felt like a knife twisting deeper into an open wound. My voice lowered, but the anger remained. You were never there. Always too busy, too distracted. Can you even name the last time we had dinner as a family? He averted his eyes, unable to meet my gaze. That was all the answer I needed. I stormed out of the room, leaving Jared behind. Outside, I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. But the memories of his neglect were too vivid. Back home, I found solace in routine. Our 6-year-old daughter, Ellie, ran to greet me, her tiny arms wrapping around my legs. Mom, you're home. Yes, sweetheart, I replied, lifting her into my arms and kissing her cheek. Scout, our faithful golden retriever, wagged his tail furiously, sensing the tension but offering silent support. How was your day? Good. Sarah took me to the park and we played with Scout. Can we do it again tomorrow? Her innocent excitement brought a bittersweet smile to my face. We'll see, Ellie, we'll see. My mind, however, was far from the park. It was still replaying the strained scene at the hospital. Later that night, I tucked Ellie into bed and sat down with a glass of wine. The house felt eerily empty without Jared's presence, but it had been like this for years. His career at the tech startup had consumed every part of him, leaving us with barely fragments of his time. The ringing phone interrupted my thoughts. Sarah's familiar voice greeted me on the other end. Hey, Cassie, how are you holding up? Not great, Sarah. You know, the usual. He's in the hospital now. What happened? She asked, concern etched in every word. Car accident, but it's not just that, it's everything. Years of neglect, empty promises. I'm done, Sarah. Cassie, she said gently, I know it's hard, but maybe this is a wake-up call for him? Wake-up call, I scoffed. He's had plenty of those. This is just another empty plea for sympathy. We chatted for a few more minutes before I hung up. Sarah had always been my rock, the one constant in my tumultuous life with Jared. But even she couldn't erase the pain that had been accumulating for years. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying Jared's pleading eyes. He had made his choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. The sleep that followed was anything but restful. My dreams were haunted by images of broken promises and lost time, but as dawn's light crept through the curtains, a new resolve settled over me. This was my life, my chance to reclaim what had been lost to Jared's indifference. I got out of bed with a sense of purpose. Today I would start to pick up the pieces, build something new, something better, for Ellie and for myself. With Scout by my side and Ellie's laughter as my guiding light, I knew I had the strength to face whatever lies ahead. I woke up with an unfamiliar determination. Today wasn't just another day surviving Jared's neglect. Today was different. Ellie sat at the breakfast table, her chubby fingers pushing scrambled eggs around her plate. Can Sarah take me to the park again? She asked, lifting her big, hopeful eyes to mine. Before I could reply, the phone rang. It was Sarah. Morning, Cassie. How are you feeling today? Her voice was warm, but there was an underlying tension I couldn't quite place. I'm fine, Sarah. Just trying to hold things together for Ellie, I said, watching my daughter smile with contentment over her breakfast, oblivious to the storm raging in my mind. Want to get some coffee later? I'll take Ellie with me to the park so you can have a breather, she suggested. Part of me wanted to say no. I didn't want to dump my problems on her again, but right now I desperately needed the support. Sure, that sounds good. Later at the cafe, the smell of freshly brewed coffee provided a brief respite from my chaotic thoughts. I can't keep doing this, Sarah, I blurted out as soon as we sat down. Jared's made it clear where his priorities lie, and it's not with us. I absently stirred my coffee, the spoon clinking against the porcelain cup. Sarah nodded, her eyes soft with understanding. I know it's hard, Cassie, but maybe things can change. Maybe this accident is what he needed to snap out of it. Sarah, he's had more chances than anyone deserves. I've sacrificed enough for his career, his dreams. What about mine? My voice cracked, the weight of my sacrifice finally surfacing. Sarah reached over, squeezing my hand. I get it. I really do. You gave up your law career, your independence. Anyone would be resentful. My thoughts flickered to my suburban upbringing. My parents had always been supportive, pushing me to follow my dreams. When I met Jared in college, he was full of ambition, and I was drawn to his drive. But somewhere along the way, I'd lost myself in his shadow. I used to be so independent, so sure of myself, I said quietly. Now I'm just Jared's wife, Ellie's mom. I miss who I was. Sarah's eyes were sympathetic. It's not too late to find her again. You're stronger than you think, Cassie. As we walked back home, I watched Sarah with Ellie. They were laughing together, Scout happily trotting alongside. They looked so carefree, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. Was it possible that Sarah knew more about Jared's actions than she let on? When we arrived home, I excused myself, saying I needed a moment to think. Alone in the quiet of my bedroom, I felt the familiar sense of bitterness gnawing at my heart. Jared had taken so much from me, my career, my self-worth, my trust. That night, as I tucked Ellie into bed, she gave me a hug so tight it almost broke my heart. Mom, can we have pancakes for breakfast tomorrow? Of course, sweetheart, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. You and me, pancakes tomorrow morning. As I lay in bed listening to the soft hum of the house, a new resolve settled over me. No more waiting for Jared to change. No more clinging to a life that no longer existed. It was time to reclaim my future, to rebuild my life from the ground up. With Sarah pushing me along and Ellie's laughter guiding me, I could see a new path forming. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing worth fighting for ever was, and this was my battle to win. Ellie was bouncing with excitement, tugging at my hand. Mom, are we still going to the zoo today? You promised. I forced a smile. Of course, sweetheart. Just let me call your dad and confirm. But deep down, I had a sinking feeling. Dialing Jared's number, I felt the usual knot tighten in my stomach. He picked up after the fourth ring, sounding distracted. Cassie, what's up? I'm in a meeting. Jared, we're supposed to go to the zoo today. Ellie's been looking forward to it all week. There was a pause, and then the dreaded words came. I can't make it. There's an emergency at work. I'm really sorry. I felt the anger boiling inside me. You promised, Jared, again. I know. But I really can't help it this time. We'll go another day, I swear. I hung up without another word. Ellie's face fell when she saw my expression. Is Daddy not coming? I knelt down to her level, trying to keep my voice steady. No, honey. Daddy has to work. But don't worry, we'll have a great time, just you and me. We ended up having a fun day at the zoo, but Jared's absence was a dark cloud over the outing. When we got home, I noticed something unusual. Jared's car was in the driveway. Confused and a bit suspicious, I walked into the house. Jared was on the couch with his laptop, typing away. You're home? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, the meeting got moved online, he said without looking up. How was the zoo? It was fine, I replied, but I felt a pang of frustration. He could have come with us. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, the doubts started creeping in. Jared's late nights, the constant meetings, the lingering scent of unfamiliar perfume on his clothes. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I called Sarah, needing to talk things out. Sarah, I think Jared is hiding something from me. He's been so distant, and it's not just about work. You're overthinking it, Cassie, she replied casually. He's busy with the startup, but if you really think something's up, maybe you should talk to him. It feels like there's more to it. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but I need to know the truth. Sarah hesitated. Look, I know you've been through a lot, but maybe he's just overwhelmed. Give him a chance to explain. Maybe you're right, I said, though I wasn't convinced. Thanks, Sarah. I'll talk to him. But the conversation only deepened my resolve. I needed answers. The next day, while Jared was at work, I decided to take a closer look at his things. In the closet, there it was, a small, expensive perfume bottle, definitely not mine. When Jared got home, I confronted him. Jared, what's this? I held up the perfume bottle. He looked taken aback. It's a client gift. There's nothing to worry about. But his hesitation spoke volumes. A client gift? Really, Jared? Why was it hidden in your suitcase? Cassie, it's not what you think. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said defensively. I don't believe you, I replied, my voice icy. We're not done with this conversation. As the days passed, my suspicions only grew. I decided to take matters into my own hands and hired a private investigator. I needed the truth, and I wasn't going to let Jared's lies hold me back any longer. When the investigator called with initial findings, I felt a mix of dread and anticipation. Jared's been meeting with a woman at odd hours, he said. My heart sank, but I thanked him and hung up. Jared's facade was starting to crumble, and I was determined to uncover every piece. This was only the beginning. I stared at the investigator's email, my hands trembling. Jared was definitely meeting a woman at odd hours. The investigator had sent pictures, grainy but clear enough. In every photo, they were too close, too comfortable for it to be purely professional. When Jared got home that evening, I couldn't mask my anger. We need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. What's wrong now? He asked, sounding more irritated than concerned. I took a deep breath and held out the printouts of the photos. Who is she, Jared? I deserve the truth. He glanced at the photos and then back at me, his face paling. Cassie, it's not what it looks like. Stop lying to me, I shouted, the hurt and betrayal boiling over. This isn't something I can just overlook. You've been meeting her, lying to my face, making me think I was paranoid. Okay, he said, raising his hands defensively. Her name is Melissa. She's a business associate. Yes, we've met a few times outside of work, but it's nothing serious. Nothing serious, I repeated, my voice trembling. Then why lie about it? Why hide it from me? Jared sighed. Because I knew you'd react like this. You're always doubting me, always thinking the worst. His words stung. I wanted to throw the photos at him, but opted to take a step back instead. If there's nothing serious, I want you to cut all ties with her. Now. He hesitated for a moment too long. Cassie, I can't just cut off business relationships like that. This is my job, my career. It was our family first, I snapped, my voice breaking slightly. You've already pushed us aside again and again. Now this? Jared sneered. Maybe if you weren't so focused on what I'm doing wrong, you'd see how much I do for this family. I bust my ass at work to give us a good life, and this is the thanks I get? I clenched my fists, the anger bubbling up again. A good life? You mean a life where Ellie barely knows her father, and I'm left to clean up after all your broken promises? Enough, Cassie, Jared shouted. I'm tired of this constant nagging. I can't deal with your insecurities on top of everything else. He stormed out, leaving me standing there, shaking with anger and hurt. His words echoed in my mind, but I knew I couldn't let them weaken my resolve. Early the next morning, I called Sarah. Can you come over? I need to talk. She arrived within the hour, concern etched on her face. What happened? I showed her the photos. He's been seeing someone else, Sarah. I'm done. I can't keep pretending everything's okay. Sarah's face paled slightly, but she quickly recovered. Cassie, I'm so sorry. I wish there was something I could do. There is, I said, my voice steely. Help me with Ellie. I need to figure out my next steps, and I can't do it alone. She nodded. Of course. Whatever you need. After she left, I sat down at the kitchen table, my mind racing. Jared had underestimated me, but that was going to change. I wasn't the clueless wife he thought I was. Later that day, I met with the private investigator. I need more evidence, something undeniable, I said. I need to know everything. The investigator nodded. I'll take care of it. In the meantime, I started to gather my own proofs. I dug through Jared's things, looking for anything that could give me more leverage. And then I found it. Another perfume bottle, hidden in his desk drawer, this one even more expensive and clearly used. My suspicions solidified into certainty. Jared was having an affair, and my so-called best friend had been keeping secrets from me as well. I felt the sting of betrayal deepening, but it also fueled my determination. As I tucked Ellie into bed that night, she looked up at me with those trusting eyes. Mom, everything okay? I smiled, brushing a lock of hair from her forehead. Yes, sweetheart, everything's going to be just fine. But inside, I knew it was far from over. The truth was out, and it was only a matter of time before both Jared and Sarah faced the consequences of their betrayals. The private investigator handed me an envelope filled with photos and documents. Mrs. McAllister, this is the proof you asked for. I took a deep breath and opened the envelope. The contents confirmed my worst fears. Jared's affair wasn't just a fling, it had been ongoing for months. And the woman? Sarah. My hands trembled as I flipped through the photos. Jared and Sarah, laughing at a restaurant, holding hands at the park, even checking into a hotel together. The betrayal felt like a stab in the heart, but it also ignited a fire of determination. "Thank you," I said to the investigator. "This is exactly what I needed." That night, I waited for Jared to get home. The moment he walked through the door, I confronted him. "Jared, we need to talk. Now." He looked annoyed. "Can it wait? I've had a long day." "No, it can't." I threw the photos on the coffee table. "Explain these." Jared's face went pale as he stared at the evidence. "Cassie, it's not what it looks like." "Don't lie to me," I shouted. "You've been cheating on me with Sarah. How could you?" Jared took a step back, and then his face twisted into anger. "So what if I have? You've been so damn self-righteous, always nagging. Sarah understands me, unlike you." "You're blaming me?" I felt the fury rise. "Do you realize what you've done to our family?" "Our family?" Jared sneered. "You mean the family I support while you sit around playing the victim?" I was done. "That's it. I want a divorce, Jared. I've already started the paperwork. You're not taking another day of my life." He laughed bitterly. "Good luck with that. You think you can just kick me out? I've worked too hard for what we have." "We'll see about that," I said coldly. "And don't think for a second that I'll let you take Ellie from me." As Jared stormed out of the house, I picked up my phone and called Sarah. "We need to talk. Now." She sounded hesitant, but agreed to come over. When she arrived, she looked nervous. "Cassie, what's going on?" I thrust the photos at her. "Care to explain?" Sarah's face turned white. "Cassie, Save it," I snapped. "How could you do this to me? You were my best friend." "Cassie, I didn't mean for this to happen," she pleaded. "I was lonely, and Jared, he was there. Spare me the excuses," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "You betrayed me, and I won't forget that." "I'm sorry," she said weakly. "I really am. Sorry's not good enough, Sarah. I've already filed for divorce, and Jared will be out of here soon. But you're dead to me." With that, I slammed the door in her face, tears streaming down my cheeks. The emotional weight was almost too much, but I knew I had to stay strong for Ellie. The next few days were a blur of legal meetings and painful conversations. I confided in my parents, who were beyond supportive. "You're doing the right thing, Cassie," my mom said, hugging me tightly. "We're here for you always." I met with my lawyer, laying out the evidence of Jared's infidelity. "I want full custody of Ellie," I insisted. "He doesn't deserve to be in her life." "We'll fight for that," the lawyer assured me, "and with the evidence you have, you stand a strong chance." As the days turned into weeks, I began to set the pieces of my new life in order. I enrolled in online courses to get back into law, something I'd put on hold for Jared. With my parents' help, I managed to create a stable, loving environment for Ellie. Jared moved out after the hearing, his arrogance finally tempered by the reality of his situation. Sarah, ostracized by our mutual friends, faded into the background of my life, a painful chapter I was determined to close. One evening, as I watched Ellie play in the garden, I felt a sense of peace. I'd faced betrayal and heartbreak, but I'd emerged stronger. This wasn't the end, it was a new beginning. The day of the confrontation arrived. I arranged a gathering at our house, inviting Jared and Sarah over under the pretense of discussing logistical arrangements following the divorce. It was perfect. They would least expect it there. Jared arrived first, looking annoyed. "What's this about, Cassie?" "Just wait," I replied curtly. Moments later, Sarah walked in. The air instantly grew thicker with tension. "What's going on?" Sarah asked, her voice wavering slightly. I took a deep breath, holding back my seething anger. "We're going to settle this once and for all." I pulled out the photos and documents, spreading them out on the table. "Here's your explanation. Both of you, my husband, my so-called best friend, cheating behind my back." Jared looked stunned, but quickly masked it with indignation. "This is ridiculous." "Is it?" I snapped. "All these meetings, late nights, the perfume. You underestimated me, Jared." Sarah, on the other hand, looked defeated. She avoided my eyes, her hands trembling. "Cassie, I'm so sorry." "Sorry?" I echoed, my voice dripping with contempt. "Sorry doesn't cut it. You betrayed me in the worst way possible." Jared scoffed. "So what's your plan here? Embarrass us so you can feel better?" "No." I said calmly, almost too calmly. "I'm here to make sure there's no denying what you've done. For the record, for the court, and for our daughter." Jared's face turned crimson with rage. You think you can use this against me? I'll fight you in court. You'll regret this, Cassie. I held my ground. I've already filed for divorce and secured a lawyer. You won't take Ellie from me, ever. Sarah's eyes finally met mine, filled with guilt. Cassie, please. I never wanted this. It just happened. Things like this don't just happen, Sarah. You made a choice. I turned to Jared, my voice icy. Both of you did. Jared, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried a different tactic. Cassie, think about Ellie. Do you want her to grow up with parents who are at each other's throats? I want Ellie to grow up knowing her mother stood up for herself, rather than staying in a toxic marriage. I motioned to the door. Now get out, both of you. They stumbled to the door, the shock of my resolve evident on their faces. As they left, the emotional weight finally lifted from my shoulders. This was the first step toward reclaiming my life and Ellie's. The following days were filled with legal procedures, but I remained unwavering. Jared tried to paint me as the unreasonable party, but with the evidence we had, his efforts fell flat. I won full custody of Ellie, and Jared was forced to move out, leaving me with the house. On the day the court finalized our divorce, I felt a wave of relief. I had done it. Ellie and I could finally start anew. Jared's career took a hit next. I tipped off his company about his affair. They didn't take kindly to the scandal, especially given the public nature of our legal battle. He was dismissed within the week. Sarah didn't escape unscathed either. Our mutual friends, now aware of her betrayal, distanced themselves, leaving her isolated. Her relationship with Jared crumbled under the strain, and both of them faced the fallout of their actions. One evening, as Ellie and I packed our things, preparing to move back to my hometown, she looked up at me and smiled. Mom, are we going on an adventure? Yes, sweetheart, I said, hugging her tightly. A new adventure for both of us. As we drove away from the past, a murmured conversation from Ellie in the back seat filled the car. I glanced at her through the rearview mirror, her face glowing with excitement about our future. It was a reminder of why I went through all the pain and struggle. For her. For us. We arrived at my parents' place, where they welcomed us with open arms. I took a deep breath, feeling the support and love that had been missing for so long. It was the start of a new chapter, one we would write together, filled with love, strength, and unwavering determination. Jared showed up at the house unexpectedly one evening. His face was haggard, and there was a desperate glint in his eyes. Cassie, we need to talk, he said, blocking the doorway. There's nothing left to say, Jared, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I glanced over my shoulder at Ellie, who was busy coloring at the kitchen table. I lost my job because of you, he spat, stepping closer. You had to get involved, didn't you? I didn't get you fired, Jared. Your actions did that. You put yourself in this mess. Don't you get it? He said, his voice rising. You're ruining everything. I've got nothing now. No job, no family. I furrowed my brow, unwilling to back down. You had a family. You threw that away when you cheated on me. He threw up his hands in exasperation. So this is revenge? You're just satisfied making my life hell? It's about consequences, Jared. Something you've avoided your whole life. He crossed his arms, glaring at me. You might think you've won, but this isn't over. I looked him square in the eye. Yes, it is, Jared. Now leave. Realizing he wasn't getting anywhere, Jared turned and walked away, slamming the door behind him. I hugged Ellie and tried to shake off the encounter, knowing there was more to focus on. The next part of my plan was crucial. I contacted our mutual friends, making sure they knew exactly what had transpired. Photos, messages, everything. I exposed Jared and Sarah's deceit to the world. The fallout was immediate. Our once close-knit friend group turned on Jared, shunning him. Sarah faced equally harsh scrutiny. Her social circles crumbled, and the isolation she felt was evident. I took things a step further by posting the affair details on social media. It wasn't about public humiliation, it was about ensuring everyone knew the truth. The community's reaction was swift and unsympathetic. Their lives, once intertwined with lies, now unraveled publicly. One afternoon, I received a call from Jared's former boss. Cassie, it's Mark. I heard about everything. Losing his job wasn't your fault. Jared made poor choices. Our firm doesn't tolerate such behavior. I appreciate that, Mark, I replied, my voice steady. I just wanted you to know the real story. Thank you, he said. It's clear now. With Jared losing his financial security, I presented him with the settlement agreement. He was in no position to fight back. The agreement stripped him of significant assets, ensuring Ellie and I were well taken care of. When he saw the papers, his eyes widened. This is everything. You're taking everything from me. You took everything from me when you betrayed us, I said, my voice resolute. Sign it, Jared. It's the least you owe. With no other options, he signed. It was done. Jared moved out, leaving behind nothing but the hollow shell of his former arrogance. As the days passed, I focused on rebuilding. My parents' support never wavered. They helped take care of Ellie while I started studying again, determined to regain my career in law. I spent evenings with Ellie, who was adapting well to the changes. We explored the local park, baked cookies, and created new routines. Every laugh, every small victory was a step toward healing. One sunny afternoon, we hosted a small picnic with my parents. Ellie, her face smeared with chocolate, looked up at me and beamed. Mom, this is the best day ever. In that moment, surrounded by family and love, I realized how far we'd come. The betrayal and hurt were slowly being replaced by joy and hope. Ellie's smile was proof that the worst was behind us and only better days lay ahead. As we packed up the picnic, I looked at my daughter and thought, yes, sweetheart, the best is yet to come. Ellie and I settled into our new life with a surprising ease. My parents' home, though filled with nostalgia, became a place of healing and new beginnings. Every morning I walked Ellie to her new school, the smile on her face confirming that this move had been the right choice. One day, as I picked her up from school, she tugged on my hand. Mom, can we visit Grandma and Grandpa after school? Of course, sweetie. They'd love that. We headed home, the warm afternoon sun casting a comforting glow on us. When we arrived, my mom was in the kitchen, kneading dough for her famous apple pie. There's my girl, she exclaimed, enveloping Ellie in a flowery hug. Dinner will be ready in an hour, Cassie, my dad called from the living room, where he was setting up a board game Ellie loved. The normalcy of it all filled me with a contentment I hadn't felt in years. That evening, after Ellie was asleep, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down with my mom. Ellie's adapting so well, I said, feeling a sense of relief. And so are you, my mom replied, a knowing look in her eyes. You've been through a lot, but you're rediscovering yourself, Cassie. I think so, I said, feeling a touch of pride. I've started my law courses again. It feels good to do something for myself. This is your time, honey. You're stronger than you know, she said, squeezing my hand. Days turned into weeks, and the pieces of our new life began to fit together effortlessly. My studies kept me busy, but I always made time for Ellie, who continued to flourish. One afternoon, while I was working on a case study, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a mutual friend, Lisa. Jared's struggling. He lost the apartment, and Sarah moved out, the message read. Thought you'd want to know. I stared at the screen, feeling an unexpected mix of emotions. I walked over to the door, calling out for my mom. Can you watch Ellie for a bit? I need to take a walk. The evening air was crisp as I walked, my thoughts swirling. Jared's downfall had been swift and merciless. He had lost everything because of his own decisions. As I walked, I felt a strange sense of closure. That weekend, Ellie and I set up a small garden in my parents' backyard. Digging in the soil, planting seeds, and watching Ellie's excitement grow made me realize something important. This garden, much like our lives, was a new beginning. Ellie looked up, dirt smudged on her cheeks. Mom, can my flowers be pink? Of course, sweetheart, I said, smiling. We can plant all the pink flowers you want. As the flowers bloomed, so did my confidence. I began volunteering at a local legal aid clinic, helping single mothers navigate the complexities of custody and divorce. It was fulfilling work, and I felt a deep connection to the women I was helping. One evening, I sat down with Ellie, who was drawing at the kitchen table. What you working on, Ellie? It's a picture of my new school, she said proudly. And here's you. And me, and Scout. Her innocence and joy were contagious. That's beautiful, Ellie, I said, kissing her forehead. You're so talented. As the months passed, our new life took shape. There were challenges, but also triumphs. My studies were progressing well, and I felt more at peace with each passing day. Jared's presence faded into the background. He reached out once, asking for a chance to see Ellie, but I refused. Not yet, I told him. You need to work on yourself first. One sunny afternoon, Ellie and I were at a local fair. She was riding the carousel, her laughter filling the air. I watched her, my heart swelling with pride and love. When the ride ended, she ran over to me, breathless and beaming. "Mom, this is the best day ever!" I scooped her up, twirling her around. "Every day with you is the best day, Ellie." As we walked home, hand in hand, I knew our journey was far from over. But for the first time in a long time, I looked forward to the future with a sense of hope and excitement. We had built something beautiful out of the wreckage, and that was more than enough. The air was thick with the somber silence of a funeral as I stood beside my father's casket, my eyes brimming with tears. The finality of his passing weighed heavily on my heart, leaving an emptiness I knew would never fully heal. Just as I began to find solace in the embrace of my brother Ellis, a jarring voice cut through the stillness. "In our family, we take care of our own," Marla declared with a sly smile, completely disregarding the grief etched on my face. Her intrusion into this sacred moment only amplified the discomfort I had long felt about her relationship with my father. Marla, my father's longtime companion but never legally his wife, had made her presence known once again, this time with a shocking announcement. "I plan to take over the family home, to keep us all together," she said, her eyes narrowing as they met mine. I felt a surge of anger, my fists clenching at my sides. This was our home, the one I had grown up in, the one that held so many memories of my father. How dare Marla waltz in and claim it as her own, as if she had any right to do so? "That's ridiculous," Ellis interjected, his brow furrowed in disbelief. "Dad's will clearly states that the house and his assets are to be divided between us, his children." Marla's gaze remained fixed on me, her lips curling into a thin smile. "Oh, but your father and I had an understanding. He wanted me to be taken care of, to keep the family together. Surely you both can see the wisdom in that." I opened my mouth to protest, but the words caught in my throat. My father had always been a gentle soul, easily swayed by Marla's persuasive nature. Had he truly signed over his home to her, leaving Ellis and me with nothing? Panic began to set in as I contemplated the implications of Marla's claim. This was my childhood home, a sanctuary that had nurtured me through the good and the bad. The thought of losing it, of having Marla's presence loom over me constantly, filled me with a sense of dread. Ellis placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder, his expression mirroring the determination I felt welling up inside me. "We'll fight this, Tegan. We won't let her take what's rightfully ours." I nodded, my resolve hardening. Marla may have manipulated my father, but she had underestimated the strength of our bond as siblings. Together, we would not let her win without a fight. As the funeral guests began to disperse, Marla approached me, her voice dripping with false concern. "My dear, I know this is a difficult time, but I assure you, I only want what's best for our family. You'll see, in the end, this is the right decision." Her words only served to fuel my growing resentment. This woman, who had always been an outsider in our lives, now had the audacity to claim our home and our family as her own. I refused to let her take away the last piece of my father that I had left. "This is not your family, Marla," I spat, my voice trembling with emotion. "You may have had my father's ear, but you will never have his children's loyalty. We won't let you take what's ours without a fight." Marla's eyes narrowed, and for a fleeting moment I saw a glimmer of something darker beneath her facade. But as quickly as it had appeared, it vanished, replaced by a thin, patronizing smile. "We'll see about that, my dear," she said, turning on her heel and striding away, leaving me and Ellis to confront the looming battle that lay ahead. As I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the legal documents Marla had presented, a sinking feeling weighed heavily in the pit of my stomach. The words on the pages blurred together as tears threatened to spill from my eyes. My father's signature, scrawled in a shaky hand, seemed to mock me, a silent testament to Marla's manipulation. Ellis, his face etched with a mixture of disbelief and anger, slammed his fist on the table, causing me to jump. "I can't believe he signed this over to her. This is our home, our inheritance." I reached across the table, squeezing his hand in a silent plea for calm. "We have to find a way to challenge this, Ellis. Marla can't just waltz in and claim everything after Dad's death." My brother's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. "Oh, she thinks she can, Tegan. But I'll be damned if I let her get away with it." I nodded. determination stealing my resolve. Marla had been a constant presence in our lives, slowly worming her way into my father's affections, but I had always sensed something off about her. Now, with these documents in front of us, her true colors were starting to show. We need to dig deeper, find out what else she's been hiding. I paused, chewing on my bottom lip as a thought occurred to me. Maybe we should reach out to Finn. He's a lawyer, and he still has connections in the community. Ellis raised a brow, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Finn? Huh? Didn't you two have a falling out a couple of years ago? I felt the heat rise to my cheeks, the memories of my broken relationship with Finn still as fresh as the day it ended. That was a long time ago, Ellis. I'm sure he'd be willing to help for old time's sake. My brother's expression softened, and he gave my hand a gentle squeeze. Okay, let's give him a call. If anyone can help us take down Marla's ridiculous claims, it's Finn. As I dialed Finn's number, my heart raced. It had been years since we'd spoken, and the thought of facing him again filled me with a mixture of trepidation and longing. When his familiar voice answered, I took a deep breath and launched into an explanation of the situation, pleading for his assistance. To my relief, Finn's response was immediate. Of course, Tegan. I'll do whatever I can to help. Just tell me what you need. Over the next few days, Finn dove headfirst into unraveling the web of deceit Marla had woven. He uncovered a trail of past marriages, each one ending under mysterious circumstances. It became clear that Marla's sole motive was to gain control of our family's assets, even if it meant manipulating my father and tearing our family apart. As Finn presented his findings, Ellis and I listened in stunned silence. The woman we had welcomed into our lives, the one who had claimed to care for our father, was nothing more than a cold-hearted schemer. Marla has a son, Jared, who's been estranged from her for years, Finn revealed, his brow furrowed in concentration. I think he might be able to provide some valuable insight into her past and her motivations. I exchanged a glance with Ellis, both of us realizing that the battle against Marla was only just beginning. With Finn's help, we would uncover the truth and reclaim what was rightfully ours, no matter the cost. As we left Finn's office, a newfound determination burned within me. Marla had underestimated the strength of our family's bond, and I vowed to do whatever it took to protect our legacy and our home. As Finn delved deeper into Marla's past, the web of deceit he uncovered only grew more tangled and disturbing. With Ellis by my side, we listened intently as the details unfolded, each revelation fueling our determination to take down this woman who had wormed her way into our lives. Marla has been married 3 times before, Finn said, his brow furrowed in concentration. Each marriage ended under mysterious circumstances, with substantial assets and inheritances passing into her possession. I felt a chill run down my spine. Marla had always seemed so charming and maternal, but the truth was far more sinister. So she's done this before, manipulating men for their money and then cutting them out of the picture? Finn nodded grimly. It appears so, and the patterns are strikingly similar to what she's trying to do with your father's estate. Ellis clenched his fist, his knuckles turning white. The bitch, he growled. I can't believe we let her get this far. We should have seen through her act sooner. I reached out and placed a hand on my brother's arm, hoping to calm his rising temper. We can't change the past, Ellis, but we can make sure she doesn't succeed this time. Finn leaned forward, his eyes burning with determination. That's where I come in. With the evidence I've gathered, we can challenge Marla's claims to the house and your father's assets. But we'll need to act quickly before she can solidify her hold on the situation. As we discussed the next steps, a familiar face suddenly appeared in the doorway. Jared, Marla's estranged son, stood there, his expression a mix of apprehension and anger. I heard about what's happening with my mother, he said, his voice low and gruff. I want to help stop her. Ellis and I exchanged a surprised glance. Marla had never mentioned having a son, let alone one that was estranged from her. Finn, however, seemed unsurprised by Jared's arrival. We were hoping you might show up, Finn said, motioning for Jared to join us. Your insight into your mother's past could be invaluable in our fight against her. Jared took a seat, his gaze fixed on the documents strewn across the table. She's done this before, you know, he said, his voice heavy with bitterness. manipulating people, using them for her own gain. I should have known she'd try something like this with your father." As Jared shared his own harrowing experiences with Marla's deceit, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. We learned of the countless lives she had destroyed, the families she had torn apart, all in her relentless pursuit of wealth and power. "She's ruthless," Jared said, his eyes darkening with a mixture of anger and shame. "I should have warned your father, but I was too afraid of what she might do." I reached out and squeezed his hand, hoping to convey a sense of understanding. "It's not your fault, Jared. Marla's the one to blame here. But now we have a chance to stop her, to make sure she doesn't hurt anyone else." Finn nodded, his expression grim. "With Jared's help and the evidence we've gathered, I think we have a strong case to challenge Marla's claims, but we need to move quickly before she can solidify her hold on your father's estate." As we left Finn's office, a newfound sense of purpose and determination filled me. Marla may have thought she had the upper hand, but she had underestimated the power of our united front. Together we would expose her true nature and ensure that she faced the consequences of her actions. As Finn continued to build our case against Marla, I knew we needed to move quickly if we had any chance of reclaiming my father's home and assets. With Jared's help, we had uncovered a wealth of information about Marla's past, but there was still so much more to uncover. "We need to keep the pressure on," Finn said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Marla's not going to give up easily, and she's got deep pockets to fight this thing out in court." I nodded, my mind racing with the implications of our impending legal battle. What can we do to gain the upper hand? Finn paused for a moment, then leaned forward, a glint of determination in his eyes. "I think it's time we brought in another ally, someone with a personal connection to you and the case." I felt a knot form in the pit of my stomach. "You don't mean—" "Tegan, I think we need to reach out to your ex-boyfriend, Finn," Finn said, his voice low and serious. I opened my mouth to protest, but Finn held up a hand, silencing me. "I know it's not an easy thing to do, but Finn has the legal expertise and community connections that could be invaluable in taking down Marla." Ellis, who had been silent throughout the conversation, finally spoke up. "Tegan, I know it's not ideal, but Finn's right. If anyone can help us beat Marla at her own game, it's him." I sighed, running a hand through my hair in frustration. The thought of reaching out to Finn, the man I had once loved, filled me with a mix of emotions: apprehension, longing, and a tinge of regret. "All right," I conceded, steeling my resolve, "but I want to be the one to call him. I need to know that he's on board with this, and that he's willing to put aside our history for the sake of taking down Marla." Finn nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I understand. Just let me know what he says." As I dialed Finn's number, my heart pounded in my chest. It had been years since we'd spoken, and I couldn't help but wonder how he would react to my call. When he answered, his voice instantly sent a familiar warmth through me. "Tegan, is everything okay?" I took a deep breath, diving straight into the details of our situation. "Finn, I need your help. Marla is trying to take over my father's home and assets, and we need someone with your legal expertise to help us fight her." There was a brief pause, and I held my breath, bracing for his refusal, but to my surprise his response was immediate and unwavering. "Of course, Tegan. Whatever you need, I'm here to help." I felt a wave of relief wash over me, and a small smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. "Thank you, Finn. I really appreciate this." As we discussed the next steps, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. With Finn on our side, we stood a better chance of taking down Marla's nefarious plans. And perhaps, in the process, we might even find a way to heal the wounds of our past. As I hung up the phone, I caught Ellis's approving nod. "See? I told you he'd be willing to help." I couldn't help but chuckle, feeling a newfound sense of determination. Yeah, don't rub it in. Let's just focus on taking Marla down once and for all." With Finn's expertise and Jared's insider knowledge, I knew we were one step closer to exposing Marla's true nature and reclaiming what rightfully belonged to her. The battle may have just begun, but I was more ready than ever to face it head-on. As Finn continued to build our case against Marla, it became clear that she was growing increasingly desperate to maintain her grip on my father's estate. The more evidence we uncovered, the more vicious her tactics became. "She's been spreading lies about you and Ellis in the community," Finn revealed, his expression one of disgust. "She's trying to turn everyone against you, to isolate you, and make her claims seem more legitimate." I felt a surge of anger, my hands clenching into fists. How dare she? This is our home, our family's legacy, and she's trying to take it all away. Ellis, his face flushed with rage, slammed his fist on the table. "I won't let her get away with this. We've got to expose her for the conniving snake she is." Finn nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I agree, but we need to be strategic. Marla's got deep pockets and powerful connections in this community. If we make a wrong move, she could bury us in legal battles for years." I chewed on my bottom lip, my mind racing with the implications of Finn's words. Marla had already caused so much damage, not just to our family, but to countless others. The thought of her escaping justice filled me with a sense of dread. "There has to be a way to bring her down, once and for all," I said, determination stealing my voice. "We can't let her win, not after everything she's done." Finn's eyes narrowed, and a faint smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "I think I might have an idea," he said, leaning forward. "But it's going to require all of us working together to pull it off." As Finn laid out his plan, I felt a spark of hope ignite within me. It was a bold move, one that would put Marla's deceit on full display for the entire community to see. Ellis and I exchanged a long, contemplative look, silently weighing the risks and rewards. "I'm in," Ellis said, his voice laced with determination. "If there's a chance we can take that conniving bitch down, I'm all for it." I nodded, my own resolve hardening. "Let's do it. It's time Marla faced the consequences of her actions." Over the next few days, we put Finn's plan into motion, carefully coordinating with Jared to ensure everything fell into place. Marla, unaware of the impending storm, continued her campaign of misinformation, fueling the growing rift between us and the community. But as the community event we had chosen as the stage for our confrontation drew near, I could feel the tension mounting. Marla, sensing that her control was slipping, became increasingly erratic and aggressive, lashing out at us with vicious insults and threats. "You think you can just waltz in and take what's mine?" she hissed, her eyes burning with a fury I had never seen before. "This house, this family, they belong to me, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep them." I stood firm, meeting her gaze without flinching. "This is not your family, Marla. It never was, and we're going to prove it, once and for all." As the event began, the air was thick with anticipation. Finn, Ellis, and Jared were in position, ready to expose Marla's web of lies. And when the moment came, when Marla's facade finally crumbled under the weight of our evidence, the community erupted in a chorus of gasps and outraged cries. Marla, her eyes wild with desperation, tried to flee, but Finn and Ellis were there to block her path. "It's over, Marla," Finn said, his voice laced with triumph. "Your reign of manipulation and deceit ends here." As Marla was led away by the authorities, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The battle had been won, and our family's legacy had been reclaimed. But the true victory lay in the knowledge that Marla's reckoning was finally at hand. The air was charged with a palpable tension as Finn, Ellis, and I took the stage at the community event. Marla stood before us, her eyes narrowed with a mix of fury and desperation. I could practically feel the weight of her deception pressing down on us, daring us to expose the truth. "Everyone, please, listen to me," Marla pleaded, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "Tegan and Ellis are trying to steal what rightfully belongs to our family. I only want to keep us together, to honor the wishes of my beloved partner." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into the palms of my hands. The nerve of her to stand there and spin her web of lies, even in the face of the evidence we had gathered. Finn stepped forward, his expression stern and unwavering. "That's where you're wrong, Marla. The truth is, you've been manipulating this family for years, isolating your partner from his own children, and using his assets for your own gain." A hush fell over the crowd as Finn began to rattle off the details of Marla's past. The multiple marriages, the suspicious circumstances surrounding their endings, and the pattern of her exploiting her partner's wealth. Marla's face contorted with a rage I had never seen before. "You have no idea what you're talking about," she spat, her eyes darting frantically around the room. This is all lies, fabricated by these ungrateful children. Ellis stepped up, his voice steady and unyielding. The only liar here is you, Marla. We have the documents, the evidence, to prove that you've been manipulating our father and us for your own selfish gain. Jared, who had been silent up until this point, finally spoke up, his voice thick with emotion. She's done this before, you know. Destroyed families, ruined lives, all for the sake of her own greed and power. The crowd murmured in disbelief, their eyes shifting between Marla and the three of us. I could see the realization dawning on their faces, the scales finally tipping in our favor. Marla's composure began to crumble, her mask of false concern slipping away to reveal the true, twisted nature beneath. "You'll all regret this," she shrieked, her eyes wild with desperation. "I'll make sure you pay for this, every last one of you." Finn raised a hand, silencing the crowd. "That's not going to happen, Marla. We've filed the necessary legal actions to strip you of any claims to the family's assets and home. Your reign of manipulation and deceit ends here." As the authorities arrived to take Marla away, the air seemed to ripple with a palpable sense of relief and triumph. Ellis and I stood side by side, our shoulders squared, a small but victorious smile playing on our lips. The community members who had once been swayed by Marla's lies now looked upon us with newfound respect and admiration. They had seen the truth, the ugly reality of Marla's machinations, and they rallied behind us, offering their support and condolences. In that moment, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The battle was won, and our family's legacy had been reclaimed. Marla's downfall had been swift and decisive, a testament to the power of truth and the strength of our united front. As we left the event, Jared approached us, a tentative smile on his face. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft but sincere, "for exposing her, for giving me a chance to make things right. I'm sorry I couldn't do it sooner." I reached out and squeezed his hand, my own eyes brimming with unshed tears. "You're part of our family now, Jared. We're in this together." As we walked away, Ellis draped an arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. "It's over, Teague. We did it." I nodded, my heart swelling with a mix of relief and pride. The journey had been arduous, but in the end we had emerged victorious, our family's legacy and our home secure. It was a bittersweet triumph, but one that filled me with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. As the dust settled after our public confrontation with Marla, the full weight of her downfall began to sink in. Watching her facade crumble, her desperate attempts to cling to power and control, was both satisfying and sobering. Finn wasted no time in initiating the necessary legal actions to strip Marla of any claims to our family's assets and home. The evidence we had gathered, bolstered by Jared's first-hand accounts, proved to be a devastating blow to Marla's case. "She's done," Finn declared, a triumphant glint in his eyes. "The judge has ordered the immediate transfer of the house and your father's estate back to you and Ellis." Ellis let out a breath I didn't realize he had been holding, his shoulders slumping with relief. Finally, some good news. I was starting to think this whole thing would never end. I nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. "It's over, Ellis. We can finally start to rebuild, to move on with our lives." But as we celebrated our victory, a sense of unease began to creep in. Marla, once so confident and in control, had been reduced to a cornered animal, lashing out with desperation. "This isn't over," she hissed, her eyes burning with a twisted rage. "You think you've won, but I'll make sure you pay for this. All of you." Finn stepped forward, his expression unwavering. "Save it, Marla. Your threats hold no power anymore. You're going to jail for your past crimes, and you'll never be able to hurt this family again." Marla's lips curled into a snarl, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the true darkness that had been lurking beneath her veneer all along. "You have no idea what I'm capable of," she spat. "I'll make sure you all suffer, just like I have." As the authorities led her away, I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine. Marla's words, laced with a chilling certainty, sent a wave of unease through me. Had we truly seen the last of her twisted machinations? In the days that followed, the community rallied around us, offering support and condolences. They had witnessed Marla's true nature firsthand, and many expressed shame and guilt for having believed her lies. "We should have seen through her act sooner," one of my colleagues said, her eyes downcast. I'm so sorry, Tegan, for not trusting you. I reached out and squeezed her hand, offering a reassuring smile. It's not your fault. Marla was a master of deception. She fooled all of us for a long time. As we began the process of reclaiming our family's home and rebuilding our lives, a sense of cautious optimism began to take root. Finn, Ellis, and I worked tirelessly to create a community arts program in our father's memory, channeling our energy into something positive and meaningful. But just as we were starting to find our footing, a sudden and shocking development sent shockwaves through our community. Marla, in a final, desperate act of vengeance, had been arrested for the fraudulent activities uncovered in her previous marriages. The news hit us like a punch to the gut, a stark reminder that Marla's reach had extended far beyond our little town. Ellis and I exchanged a worried glance, our triumphant smiles fading. We should have known she wouldn't go down without a fight, Ellis murmured, his brow furrowed in concern. I nodded, my mind racing with the implications. We can't let our guard down, not now. Marla's still out there, and she's proven she'll stop at nothing to get what she wants. As we grappled with this new development, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Marla's downfall had been swift and decisive, but the scars she had left on our family would take time to heal. And with the knowledge of her past crimes now laid bare, I couldn't help but wonder what other surprises she might have in store for us. In the aftermath of Marla's downfall, Ellis and I found ourselves at a crossroads, both physically and emotionally. The family home we had fought so hard to reclaim now stood before us, a bittersweet reminder of the tumultuous journey we had just endured. As I stepped through the familiar threshold, memories of my childhood flooded my mind. Laughter-filled family dinners, cozy nights spent reading by the fireplace, and the warm embrace of my father's love. But now, those cherished moments felt tainted, overshadowed by the darkness that Marla had cast over our lives. Ellis reached out and squeezed my shoulder, his expression solemn. I know it's not going to be easy, Teague, but we've got to start somewhere. I nodded, taking a deep breath to steady my nerves. You're right, this is our home, our family's legacy. We can't let Marla's poison destroy that. Together, we began the daunting task of reclaiming our space, removing any trace of Marla's influence. It was as if we were erasing the very existence of the woman who had threatened to tear our family apart. As we worked, Finn joined us, a small but determined smile on his face. I'm here to help, in any way I can, he said, his eyes meeting mine with a warmth that I hadn't felt in years. The three of us, united in our mission, set about restoring the home to its former glory. Slowly but surely, the familiar sights and sounds began to resurface, and with them, a sense of comfort and belonging that had been so cruelly ripped away. It's going to take time, Finn said, his gaze sweeping across the room, but we'll get there. This place will be a home again, I promise. I reached out, grasping Finn's hand in a silent gesture of gratitude. The walls that had once stood between us seemed to crumble, and in that moment I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. As the weeks turned into months, Ellis and I poured our hearts and souls into creating a community arts program in our father's memory. It was our way of honoring his legacy, of turning the darkness that Marla had brought into something beautiful and meaningful. Jared, the once estranged son of our former adversary, became an unexpected ally and a part of our extended family. His insights and personal experiences proved invaluable as we navigated the complex emotional terrain, and his commitment to the arts program was a testament to his own redemption. I'm grateful for this, he said one day, his eyes shining with a newfound sense of purpose, for the chance to be a part of something that's making a real difference in people's lives. I reached out and squeezed his hand, a warm smile spreading across my face. You're family now, Jared. We're in this together. As the community rallied around our initiative, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. The scars left by Marla's deceit would take time to heal, but in the act of rebuilding, we were forging something stronger, something that couldn't be torn apart by the machinations of a single twisted individual. Finn, ever the steady presence in my life, became a constant source of support and guidance. The walls between us had crumbled, and in their place, a renewed sense of trust and affection blossomed. It was a gentle, yet powerful reminder that even in the face of adversity, love could still find a way to flourish. As I stood in the newly restored family home, surrounded by the people I loved, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Marla's reign of terror was over, and in its wake, a new chapter had begun, one filled with hope, resilience, and the unwavering strength of our family bond.